So,
Well,
yeah.
if you accomplish.
Okay, so this is the last Sicha that I said on this week's Parsha, Parshas Tavai, Chaf Aleph Elul, the 21st of Elul. What's today? Today is the 18th, so it's going to be like this year. 21st will be the Shabbos. So, now this is a very, very important, very beautiful, beautiful Sicha. It's a very important, this week's Parsha has a very important mitzvah. It's the mitzvah of Bikurim, to offer the first fruits. So in other words, most people were farmers. You tied a little red string, I think this is on the fruits of Israel, so you had a fig is budding, the first ones you tied a red string, and then you brought that basket to Jerusalem, and you ate it in Jerusalem, and you said thank you, or maybe gave some of it to the Kohen. It was a ritual that you did. So, but effectively it's about gratitude. So behemshich to the tiva b'parshasenu with mitzvah bikurim and vide ma'isa unkumendik in Eretz Yisrael. Now this mitzvah applied when the Jews came to Eretz Yisrael. Was the mit hishlim Moshe levar satayra ulachadish kol mitzvah shetzivah oisei. With this mitzvah, Moses concludes the explanation of the Torah. So of course we know the fifth book of the Torah is called Mishnah Torah, and Mishnah Torah actually means repetition of the Torah. So Moshe Rabbeinu repeats. Last week's parsha was Ki Savoi. We had 74 mitzvahs. A lot of this, the Torah is basically, if you look at it, it's basically now a monologue from Moses. It was said in the last 30 days of his life, and a lot of it's repetition. And this is the conclusion. So this is very remarkable if you think about it, that the mitzvah of saying thank you is the conclusion of all the mitzvahs of the Torah. Like he began, begging them close to Kikiyim from God's Torah, and alle mitzvahs, and the bris of them, sufficient them Eibishim mitinid. So here, he's speaking about the covenant between God and the Jewish people. So in other words, we have not only the mitzvah of Bikurim, we also have the covenant between God and the Jewish people. So there's obviously some kind of connection between these two things. And not only that, he speaks about the general keeping of the entire Torah. So there's a connection not only to the covenant, but also to the keeping of the entire Torah, the mitzvah of Bikurim. So the question, of course, is, what is so amazing about Bikurim that it has all these factors? So, because the command and the covenant on the general Torah mitzvahs comes immediately after the mitzvah of Bikurim, so there is a fundamental connection between the two of them. We know that everything in the Torah, it's a very interesting principle. The principle is, Ein muktam u'ma'ucher b'Torah. There's no chronological. So some things can be said which chronologically happened beforehand. However, there is a very fundamental reason for that. Because, of course, everything in the universe, on a deeper level, right, this is very appropriate to say today, Chayelu, what did the Baal Shem Tov reveal? He revealed, remember we said this the other day, that there's an inner and outer God, inner and outer Torah, inner and outer self. What did he reveal? He revealed the inner. What is the inner? The inner God and the inner Torah, which connects to the inner self, is that it's infinite. That Hashem is always communicating life lessons. And if that's the case, how much more so the Torah itself, which the word Torah comes from Merah, which means lesson. So the Torah itself is life lessons. And therefore the juxtaposition, I mean, this is something that the Chabad Rebbes went into, the Rebbe exceedingly. Everything in the Torah has a profound life lesson to it. So the fact that these two things, a mitzvah of Bikurim, is connected to the general keeping the mitzvahs and the covenant and going into Israel, it's all for a reason. It's all for a lesson, which we will develop what that lesson is. Now, out of that, Rashi explains that the reason that you're going to be blessed, this is because of the mitzvah of Bikurim. Furthermore, this covenant on the general Torah mitzvahs is in the same parsha with mitzvah of Bikurim. The beginning of the parsha is about Bikurim. The beginning of everything, even by any person, you start off with the basic idea. This becomes the flow. In other words, the parsha is really about Bikurim, and everything in the parsha relates to it. So again, just to remind, Bikurim is about the first fruits that were brought to the temple, and we thanked God for our produce. So we have to understand, what is the connection of Bikurim with the covenant of Torah mitzvahs? All the Torah mitzvahs. It would seem Bikurim is one mitzvah between all the mitzvahs. Not only that, it's a mitzvah that's dependent on many factors. It's dependent on time and space, a person, fruit. It has to be in Eretz Yisrael. The time the Beis HaMikdash was there. It has to be from the 7 fruits that Israel is blessed with. It has to be from the best of the 7 fruits, the best of your produce. It has to be somebody that has land in Israel and good land. So it's all these qualifications. So it seems like it's not such a great mitzvah that's so qualified. It's not like Shabbos. So what's the connection that it has to all other mitzvahs? So we also have to understand the name of the parsha. The name of this week's parsha is Tovoi. We once said regarding the names of the parshas that the name of something gives out its general soul, right? We all have soul names, and the soul shows us who we are and what our mission is. What's your Jewish name again? Avraham. Avraham. That's a very important. Spread light. And so Tavai means Ki Savoi, says when you come into Israel. So obviously going into Israel is a prelude in order to do the mitzvah. So the question is, why would the whole parsha be named on the prelude? You come to a place to live there, to do what has to be done. Why is the parsha's name coming? So we'll understand this by first explaining something unique with the mitzvah of Bikurim relative to other mechanisms of saying thank you to Hashem. This is a very profound thing. When you bring your first fruits to Hashem, you're recognizing that whatever comes to you comes from God. The blessing of God brings the Jew his produce and the fruit of his field, and therefore he's happy to give God, meaning if I gave you $1,000 and ask you for 10, you'd be happy to give it to me. So he's happy to give God the best of his fruit. This recognition of gratitude to God for his favors is a general thing in the life of a Jew, beginning immediately when you wake up, that you say immediately, Moida ani lefanecha, the first thing we do is we say thank you to Hashem, Shechazarta bi nishmasi, that you returned my soul to me. And this is the foundation of doing the will of God. In other words, the very first thing we do is we acknowledge. It's very interesting. The Hebrew word for thanks is the same word as acknowledge, because everything really does come from God. But if you don't, or put it in a more positive, the first step is to acknowledge that. Once that's acknowledged, then obviously you're going to be grateful, right? So gratitude and acknowledgement are really dependent one on the other. So, yeah. Yeah.
To me, it highlights the point of learning how to see that.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the point.
Absolutely.
I think what you're saying is incredibly important.
Yeah.
Never been taught.
Yeah.
I don't think
Yeah.
you would come to on your own.
Yeah, you're right.
Somebody has to teach you. I mean, no.
No, you're right.
But I don't think it's intuitive.
Hmm.
That you would say, how did this all happen?
Yeah.
I mean, look how many thousands of years people worship idols.
Sure.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
And religion, being a Christian,
Hmm.
says God has given. I don't know. Do you know if Muslims believe that God gives you things?
So,
We were talking
this,
about the first
yeah,
and the
yeah,
recognition of
right,
God.
right. So, yeah, so he says like this, in a very beautiful point, that a Jew thanks God throughout the day and every day for every profound statements here, for every good and every pleasure that he uses. Right there, our sages even say you should thank God for every breath, especially for food you eat. Right, that's actually in the Torah and an absolute blessing. He creates food in the world in His kindness, etc. Furthermore, even amongst Gentiles, and this is a point that I like a lot, even amongst Gentiles that believe in God, they also, we know, say thank you. Many Gentiles, they'll say before the food, they say whatever, and they say they're grateful, which is a beautiful thing. And this is furthermore appropriate according to what the Baal Shem Tov teaches us, as explained by the Alter Rebbe, that the entire world is renewed every single day, which is an infinite kindness of Hashem to every single creation. And when you realize this, that, God, right, I asked this physicist, how many times a second does God renew the world? What's the rate of renewal? Mm-hmm. So he said, he gave me a number, so I asked him for the number, so he laughed. So he explained that it is, if you were to move a millimeter every single time God renewed the world, in 1 second you would travel the known distance of the universe 10 times. That's a lot of times. That's a lot. Right, so that means how many times we can be grateful to Hashem this second that He recreated us. So it's an infinite kindness that He's doing to and this in effect, the Rebbe actually says somewhere, why did God do it this way? He could have done it differently. He could have said, like a rock, I make the rock exists. But He wanted us to have something to be grateful for. You meditate on the fact that this second He's remade us, the whole universe. So, in fact, the Rebbe says elsewhere that you're actually affecting the whole universe because your gratitude, we know, especially from science today, that your emotions affect what you're emotional about. So you're affecting the whole universe when you have the gratitude. So this brings us to a deep appreciation that everyone around us, including ourselves, is dependent on the continuous kindness of Hashem. It's only darkness that allows confusion. But if we were on the other side of the fence, let's say we were God, and we knew that every single second we just renew this world billions and trillions of times. It's like, God said to King David, I took you from being a shepherd boy. Right? So you might think you're a king, but I remember where you were. Right? So it's like, so we all can feel a great debt of gratitude. And the mitzvah of Bikurim, we find something unique. This is what I like about it. There's something very deep and comprehensive from the gratitude and Bikurim to say, many Gentile families that before they eat, they say thank you, or even certainly Jews, we say thank you before, we say thank you after. But something unique about Bikurim. What's unique about Bikurim? The Jew manifests his gratitude not only in speech, but he does something about it. He does an action. He takes actual fruit and he brings it to the Beis HaMikdash. Tavi Beis Hashem Lekecha. You have to bring it to the house of God your Lord. And he puts it before God and he puts it there. So this means that he has a tremendous understanding that the world actually belongs to God. In other words, it's not only that I earned money because God was there. So let's say, I don't know, you work for me. So you could think I'm your boss and I gave you $1,000 because he did a service. But now the $1,000 is yours. But he shows when he brings this fruit that this $1,000 that you gave me, it's still yours. And the action of bringing the fruit before God, and he leaves it there. I guess maybe they gave it to the Kohanim. This was actually in order to impress upon the person that he and everything he possesses actually is continuously before God. And this means that not only in thought and speech, but actually in an action, we're highlighting this fact. This totally encompasses the individual, because action, this is a very, very profound statement, action encompasses us greater than thought. So this is a very famous idea. The idea is from there's a book written. It's very worth reading this book. It's called Sefer Chinuch. What you say? What you say? Huh?
Abba.
Bus.
You know what's Abba?
Father.
Abba.
Oh, Abba.
Abba. He means Abba.
So the book Sefer Chinuch was written by a great rabbi, and he wrote it for his son. This is the time that Jews were. You want to sit on me? Jews were in Spain, and it was a golden age, and whenever things are good, we're half philosophers and half rebellious. So he wrote a book for his son, and the book was about the logic behind the mitzvahs. People are into Aristotle logic, very, very interesting. And one of the things he says there very often is he says, Afrei ha'pu'ulois nimshachais halevavos, that the reason that many of the mitzvahs are physical is because we are attracted to the physical. In other words, if I say to you, I'm going to give you $1,000, you feel good. But if I give you $1,000, you feel a lot better. Because the physical, even though you believe me, but the physical action means a lot. Right? Or you could imagine it, but it's not the same as the physical. Du hörst das mir sagt? Oh, thank you. Look at that, huh? Look at all those toys. It's so funny. Look at all these toys. What do you say to Zadie Steve? Say, I thank Zadie Steve.
I don't have any females.
Yeah. So, the story is that the right.
True.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to give tzedakah? Is that what you want to do? You want to give tzedakah? You're so clever. Yeah. So cute. So what was I saying? I lost my train of thought. I was saying about remember? Action. Yeah. Right. So the action is very interesting. So doing an action in which we express gratitude makes, in a way, our gratitude deeper. It's very interesting. So this mitzvah bikurim, where you actually brought something physical to Hashem, created, and this in fact explains the secret of karbanos sacrifices. Because there were a lot of sacrifices that had to do with what's called korban todah, sacrifices of gratitude. You say, well, if bring God an animal, what does he needs a, you know. But the point is that when you actually do a physical action, it impacts you deeper than you have a thought or you have an emotion. That's why Judaism is very, very visceral and it's very effective. You know, they're the only group in the universe, literally the only group that was able to survive outside of a homeland and maintain its identity for thousands of years in multiple different conditions are the Jewish people. And the Rebbe says the factor that we see is the fact that they did the mitzvahs. So the mitzvahs have this great power. And I think the power is that, ironically, we may think that the physical is less important because what's the significance of a physical action? But actually it's more important because it bonds you deeper than, say, even a thought or a speech. So that's quite a powerful point. The explanation is Chazal Zog and our sages say, as Eden wären angerufen Bikurim, Jewish people are called Bikurim. We are called the, this is a very beautiful point, very profound, beautiful Sicha. Jewish people are called the first fruit of God, right? Like it says, like a newly ripened fig have I seen your forefathers. And Kodesh Yisrael Hashem Neshes Tuasa. The Jewish people are holy to God. They're the first produce. Because just like Bikurim, very interesting, comes from the word Bechar. Bechar is first, right? The Bechor is the firstborn, so the Bikurim come from that word. They are Reishis Pri Adam, the first of the fruit of the ground. Bekadnu Bikurim Lakol. Similarly, the Jewish people, we are the Bechor, we are the firstborn of the world. We precede and we are beyond everything else that was created. Like it says, that the thought, when God wanted to make the world, they say the last thing you do indicates your first thought. So what was the first thought of God? It was the Jewish people. So eventually you make a world and you make people and then you choose Abraham and choose the Jewish people. But what was the intent? What was the original intent? And that's what I was saying to you before, that whatever your intent is matters. Somebody has an intention that the business is for A or for B matters because that's where the whole business is leading to. That's where the whole drive is leading to. So, in fact, we're in the month of El. In fact, it's a very holy day. It's Chai Elul. We have great energy and power today. We have to think, what is the intent of my life, right? Because we're all going in a trajectory. And that trajectory depends very much on, as you correctly mentioned, your family. Depends on your country, your society. And it also depends on your personality. But the first thing a Jew has to do, and that's what God says to Abraham, Lech Lecha. You want to get to yourself. Min in Hebrew means from. You have to abandon your perceptions of your society. You have to abandon the perceptions of your family, but abandon the perceptions of your own instinctual self. Because if that is your trajectory, which hasn't been, not to say that it's wrong, but if it hasn't been analyzed, then it's certainly not right. So you have to reflect, and that's what today is all about. It's about the reflection. Okay, what should my trajectory be? What is the right trajectory? And with the hope of, not with the hope, I think as soon as you make the trajectory, you automatically head towards it. Right. So he says like this: a Jew is like always before Hashem. Every single Jew is always standing like in the Holy of Holies. Imagine we're standing in the Holy of Holies. Imagine how we would watch our thoughts, our speech, our actions. So is God any more in the Holy of Holies than he is in this room? You're more conscious of it there. But if you are the Kohen Gadol, if you're the chosen of people, and certainly in terms of time, it's a very holy time. We're right before Mashiach. So our thoughts, speech, and action matter. So if a Jew has to understand that he is in front of God as a high priest, and every action he does is on the altar at every moment. So when you have that consciousness, you have a much deeper understanding of, you say, why would that be? Because as we know that your soul is in essence God, so why wouldn't God be connected? Why wouldn't God care about himself? Why wouldn't God be focused on what, in a sense, his child at least, or what he is doing down here? So it only makes sense that you are within God's focus. And when you do that, you elevate yourself to a higher consciousness. And this is one of the things that speaks about this. Rebbe brings it down many times in the Rambam, that not only has the tribe of Levi, such a good kid, huh? Not only has the tribe of Levi been chosen by God to serve him full time, however, in fact, any person, it doesn't seem to indicate only a Jew, any single person who says, I'm not going to be concerned with the kind of foolish predilections of the world, whatever the current, zeitgeist, whatever the current stupidity is, I'm going to go and be a servant of God. This person becomes a holy of holies, like a Kohen Gadol. In fact, it says that when Mashiach comes, we will all be allowed to go into the Holy of Holies whenever we want. because the Kohen Gadol technically, even though he only went once a year, technically was allowed to go in whenever he wanted. So anybody who raises their spirit to be a servant of God, they become entitled to go into the Holy of Holies. Yes. He says like this. Based on this, we'll understand that the mitzvah of Bikurim. Now remember, we asked the question: Why is Bikurim such a special mitzvah? Right? We said it's connected to the whole Torah. It's connected to the covenant.
What is Bikurim?
Bikurim is this bringing the first fruits to Eretz Yisrael. 1 second. Relax. It's all good. Okay. So the answer is that Bikurim means Bechor. It means the first. Bikurim shows us that we are the first thought. So in other words, what did we say yesterday? We said that you are where your thoughts are. So where's God's thoughts? God's thoughts are with us. So that means where is God? God is with us, right? And therefore, when a Jew understands, it's not that he and God are two separate entities. So, when you're talking about spiritual matters, in fact, this is one of the reasons the Rambam says the Trinity can't be correct. Because you can say there's three I remember I was on a plane once and I met a missionary who was going to Russia. So he explained the Trinity to me. So it's like an apple. You have an outer, you got the flesh, and then you got the seeds. But the only problem is that God isn't an apple. And from a perspective of reality, God has no body. And if he has no body, he basically is a spirit. He is a concept in a way. So if you take any concept, like 1 + 1 = 2, that concept is the same whether I'm thinking it or you're thinking it. It's not a different concept. It's not a different time and space. It's 1 + 1 = 2. So God doesn't change. And if there were, in fact, angels, which are mainly spirits, are all differentiated by having certain differences in their spirits. One will be a little bit more love, a little more fear, a little this, a little that. But the differentiation are spiritual differentiations. They're like levels. But in God, there is no level. So you can't say he's 3, because if it would be 3, it would be 1. So, in other words, Hashem's connection to us and on that core level is absolute. It's one thing. And once you understand that it's one, then it changes everything, because that means when you walk, God is walking. When you speak, God is speaking. And therefore you have to realize the importance of how you speak, how you think. You're always before Hashem. And that's a game changer, to realize that I'm always, always, always before Hashem. What you thinking? Oh. How about we'll blow the shofar, because it's the month of Elul.
Yeah.
Ready? We're going to blow the shofar.
Chikia Gadol. Teruah. She can make those same sounds without the shofar.
All right.
I have tried.